Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So yesterday we heard how Raghunatha Goswami, Raghunath Das rather, met Lord Chaitanya and begged for shelter at his lotus feet. And Lord Chaitanya told him to go back home, don't act like a crazy person. And he spent a year acting like a perfect businessman, although he was a special businessman. The kinds of situations that he settled and solved were special. So then he heard Nityananda Prabhu was in town or nearby, and he went to see him. One thing led to another, and there was a big festival, and Nityananda Prabhu punished him by asking him to make a festival with chipped rice, two different kinds, condensed milk and yogurt. And it just developed into kind of like a fair where everybody was going. And then afterwards, when Lord Nityananda was at Raghunatha Pandit's place having dinner after eating a huge feast, Lord Raghunath Das went to him and begged his mercy to the blessing that he could attain, the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And then through Raghava Pandit, Raghunath Das was told that, then Nityananda told him, he said, actually Lord Chaitanya came at that festival, and you took the remnants of his prasadam. And he came just to deliver you. So you can be sure now that all of your impediments are gone. He's accepted you, and you will attain his lotus feet without difficulty. So then he went on and he moved out of the inner part of the house and started sleeping in a Durga Mandap. And then one day a spiritual master came, Yadunandanacharya, and asked him to help him convince the pujari that had left his service to come back because there was no one else to do the puja, which we had a laugh over because that's what we do in this movement. We try to keep the pujaris together. So they started walking to Yadunandana's house, and right in the middle, Raghunatha said, okay, don't worry, I'll go to his house and I'll convince him and you can go take rest. This was right before the sun came up, so everyone was asleep. So Raghunatha Das found himself alone in the jungle, in between. And that's how it was then in those days. Everything was in between the houses, there was jungle. And he just turned around and started to go east. And he walked for 30 miles. And then he took rest in a milkman's house and got some milk. And then he turned his direction south and started to Jagannath-puri. And sometimes he would eat, sometimes he wouldn't. He ate whatever he could, whatever was available. We don't know that yet, but Lord Chaitanya said that. And then, finally he now has arrived in Jagannath-puri, and he's about to meet Lord Chaitanya. And that's where we begin our reading for today. And forgive my voice, it's a little bit weak because I've been misusing it. Not misusing it, overusing it. This is not misusing it. Can everyone hear and understand my voice?
Yes.
Okay. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda.
Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda.
When Raghunatha Das met Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord was sitting with his companions.
Which verse?
I'm sorry, 189, chapter 6. I left that out in my introduction, sorry. Okay? Chapter 6, 189. When Raghunatha Das met Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord was sitting with his companions, headed by Sarup Damodar. Staying in a distant place in the courtyard, he fell down to offer obeisances. Then Mukunda Datta said, "Here is Raghunath." As soon as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard these words, he immediately welcomed Raghunatha Das. "Come here," he said. Raghunatha Das then clasped the lotus feet of the Lord, but the Lord stood up and embraced him out of his causeless mercy. Raghunatha Das offered prayers at the lotus feet of all the devotees, headed by Sri Damodar Goswami. Seeing the special mercy Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu had bestowed upon Raghunatha Das, they embraced him also. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "The mercy of Lord Krishna is stronger than anything else. Therefore the Lord has delivered you from the ditch of materialistic life, which is like a hole into which people pass stool." Purport. According to the law of karma, everyone is destined to suffer or enjoy according to a certain material standard. But the mercy of Lord Krishna is so powerful that the Lord can change all the reactions of one's past karma or fruitive activities. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu specifically drew attention to the mercy of Lord Krishna. That mercy is more powerful than anything else, for it had saved Raghunatha Das from the strong bondage of materialistic life, which the Lord compared to a hole where people pass stool. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu gave his verdict that those addicted to the materialistic way of life are like worms that are living in stool but cannot give it up. A grihavrata, one who has decided to live in a comfortable home, although it is actually miserable, is in a condemned position. Only the mercy of Krishna can save one from such misery. Without Krishna's mercy, one cannot get out of the filthy entanglement of materialistic life. The poor living entity cannot give up his materialistic position on his own. Only when granted the special mercy of Krishna can he give it up. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew very well that Raghunatha Das was already liberated. Nevertheless, he emphasized that Raghunatha Das's life of material comfort as a very rich man's son, with a very beautiful wife and many servants to attend him, was like a ditch of stool. The Lord thus specifically indicated that ordinary men who are very happy with material comforts and family life are in no better position than worms in stool. We should note here that he doesn't mention family life specifically. He said materialistic life. You know, he had such great Grahastha Godoti, Shivananda Sen, and so many others, Srivas Thakur. So it doesn't apply to pure devotees who are living with family. These are materialistic persons. Raghunatha Das answered within his mind, "I do not know who Krishna is. I simply know that your mercy, O my Lord, has saved me from my family life." The Lord continued, "Your father and his elder brother are both related as brothers to my grandfather, Nilambar Chakravarti. Therefore I consider them my grandfathers. Purport. Nilambar Chakravarti, the grandfather of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, was very intimately related to Raghunatha Dasa's father and uncle. Nilambar Chakravarti used to call them his younger brothers, and because both of them were very much devoted to the Brahmanas and were very respectable gentlemen, similarly, they used to call him Dada Chakravarti, addressing him as an elder brother Brahmana. Raghunath Das, however, was almost the same age as Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Generally, a grandchild may joke about his grandfather. Therefore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu took advantage of the relationship between his grandfather and Raghunath Das's father and uncle and began to speak in a joking way. Since your father and his elder brother are younger brothers of Nilambar Chakravarti, I may joke about them in this way. My dear Raghunath Das, your father and his elder brother are just like worms in stool in the ditch of material enjoyment. For the great disease of the poison of material enjoyment is what they consider happiness. Because they were not pure devotees. They were gentlemen and they were accepted to be Vaishnavas, but not really pure Vaishnavas, because their dealings were not completely straight. Purport. When a man is attached to material enjoyment, he is attached to many miserable conditions, but nevertheless, he accepts his condemned position as one of happiness. Sense enjoyment is so strong for such a person that he cannot give it up, exactly as a worm in stool cannot give up the stool. From the spiritual point of view, when a person is too absorbed in material enjoyment, he is exactly like a worm in stool. Although such a position is utterly miserable to the eyes of liberated souls, the materialistic enjoyer is greatly attached to it. It takes one to know one. Although your father and uncle are charitable to Brahmanas and greatly help them, they are nevertheless not pure Vaishnavas. However, they are almost like Vaishnavas. Purport. As stated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabhaha Bhashya, some people, usually very rich men, dress like Vaishnavas and give charity to Brahmanas. They are also attached to deity worship. But because of their attachment to material enjoyment, they cannot be pure Vaishnavas. Anyabilashita shunyam jnana karma jnanavritam. The pure Vaishnava has no desire for material enjoyment. That is the basic qualification of a pure Vaishnava. There are men, especially rich men, who regularly worship the deity, give charity to Brahmanas, and are pious in every respect, but they cannot be pure Vaishnavas. Despite their outward show of Vaishnavism and charity, their inner desire is to enjoy a higher standard of material life. Raghunath Das's father, Govardhan, and uncle, Hiranyadas, were both very charitable to Brahmanas. Indeed, the Brahmanas from the Gaudiya district were practically dependent upon them. Thus they were accepted as very pious gentlemen. However, they presented themselves as Vaishnavas to the eyes of people in general. Not pure, although from a purely spiritual point of view, they were ordinary human beings, not pure Vaishnavas. Actually, Vaishnavas considered them almost Vaishnavas, not pure Vaishnavas. In other words, they were Kanishtadikaris, for they were ignorant of higher Vaishnava regulative principles. Nevertheless, they could not be called Vishayis, or blind materialistic enjoyers. So, in another place, Srila Prabhupada in a purport described how the Kanishtadikari is called a materialistic devotee, but he's called a devotee. And the reason is because the Madhyamadikaris, who are actually devotees, that's the beginning of pure devotional service, to attain the Madhyam platform. They consider them devotees so that they're allowed to come into their association. And then they can become, in the association of the Madhyams, eventually Madhyam Adhikaris. Translation. Those who are attached to materialistic life and are blind to spiritual life must act in such a way that they are bound to repeated birth and death by the actions and reactions of their activities. Purport. As clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Yagyarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karmabandhanaha. If one does not act as a pure devotee, whatever acts he performs will produce reactions of fruity bondage, karma bandhana. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, Nunam pramatak kurute vikarma yadindriya pritaya aprinoti yad nasadu manya yata atmanoyam asan apikleshata asadeyaha. A materialistic person, madly engaged in activities for sense enjoyment, does not know that he is entangling himself in repeated birth and death, and that his body, although temporary, is full of miseries. A vishayi, a person blindly caught in a web of materialistic life, remains in the cycle of birth and death perpetually. Such a person cannot understand how to execute pure devotional service, and therefore he acts as a karmi, jnani, yogi, or something else, according to his desire. But he does not know that the activities of karma, jnana, and yoga simply bind one to the cycle of birth and death. Translation. By his own free will, Lord Krishna has delivered you from such a condemned materialistic life. Therefore the glories of Lord Krishna's causeless mercy cannot be expressed. Purport. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said, Karmani nir dahati kintu chibakti bhajam. Lord Krishna is so merciful that he can stop the reactions of karma for his devotee. Everyone, from the small insect called Indragopa up to Indra, the king of heaven, is bound by the reactions of fruitive activities. Yes, twindragopa matapten aho sukarma bandhanu rupa palabhajana matunoti karmani nirdahati kintu chabakti bhajam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. Everyone, whether an insect or the king of heaven, is entangled and bound by the actions and reactions of his karma. However, when one becomes a pure devotee, free from material desires and from bondage to karma, jnana, and yoga, one is freed from the material actions and reactions by the causeless mercy of Krishna. One cannot express sufficient gratitude to Krishna for being freed from the materialistic way of life. Translation. Seeing Raghunatha Das skinny and dirty because of having traveled for 12 days and fasted, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, his heart melting due to causeless mercy, spoke to Swarup Damodar. My dear Swarup, he said, I entrust this Raghunatha Das to you. Please accept him as your son or servant. There are now 3 Raghunaths among my associates. From this day forward, this Raghunath should be known as Raghu, the Raghu of Swarup Damodar. Purport. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu had 3 Raghus among his associates, Vaidya Raghunath, Bhatta Raghunath, and Das Raghunath. Das Raghunath became celebrated as the Raghunath of Swarup. Saying this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu grasped the hand of Raghunatha Das and entrusted him to the hand of Swarup Damodar Goswami. Swarup Damodar Goswami accepted Raghunatha Das, saying, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever you order is accepted. He then embraced Raghunatha Das again. I cannot properly express the affection of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu for his devotees. Being merciful toward Raghunatha Das, the Lord spoke as follows to Govinda. On the way, Raghunatha Das has fasted and undergone hardships for many days. Therefore, take good care of him for some days, so that he may eat to his satisfaction. Then Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu told Raghunatha Das, Go bathe in the sea, then see Lord Jagannath in the temple, and return here to take your meal. After saying this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu got up and went to perform his midday duties, and Raghunatha met all the devotees present. Having seen the causeless mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu upon Raghunatha Das, all the devotees, struck with wonder, praised his good fortune. Raghunatha Das took his bath in the sea and saw Lord Jagannath. Then he returned to Govinda, the personal servant of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Govinda offered him a plate with the remnants of food left by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and Raghunatha Das accepted the prasadam with great happiness. Raghunatha Das stayed under the care of Swarup Damodar Goswami, and Govinda supplied him remnants of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's food for 5 days. Beginning from the 6th day, Raghunatha Das would stand at the gate known as Singadwara to beg alms after the Pushpanjali ceremony, in which flowers were offered to the Lord. After finishing their prescribed duties, the many servants of Lord Jagannath, who were known as Vishayis, returned home at night. If they see a Vaishnava standing at the Singadwara begging alms, out of mercy they arrange for the shopkeepers to give him something to eat. Thus it is a custom for all time that a devotee who has no other means of support stands at the Singadwara gate to receive alms from the servants. A completely dependent Vaishnava thus chants the holy name of the Lord all day and sees Lord Jagannath with full freedom. It is a custom for some Vaishnavas to beg from the charity booths and eat whatever they obtain, whereas others stand at night at the Singadwara gate begging alms from the servants. Renunciation is the basic principle sustaining the lives of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees. Seeing this renunciation, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is extremely satisfied. Purport. Anyone, whether an ordinary materialistic person or a pure devotee, can understand the behavior of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's devotee if he studies it minutely. One will thus find that the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu are not at all attached to any kind of material enjoyment. They have completely given up sense enjoyment to engage fully in the service of Lord Sri Krishna and dedicate their lives and souls to serving Krishna without material desires. Because their devotional service is free from material desires, it is unimpeded by material circumstances. Although ordinary men have great difficulty in understanding this attitude of the devotees, it is greatly appreciated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Govinda said to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Raghunatha Das no longer takes prasadam here. Now he stands at the Singadwara gate, at the Singadwara, excuse me. Now he stands at the Singadwara where he begs some alms to eat. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, he was greatly satisfied. Raghunatha Das has done well, he said. He has acted suitably for a person in the renounced order. A person in the renounced order should always chant the holy name of the Lord. He should beg some alms to eat, and he should sustain his life in this way. Unless they come to Houston and then they get served so much nice prasadam, it's like something else. Special alms. As stated in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, at the end of the 20th Vilas, a well-to-do householder Vaishnava cannot live like a person in the renounced order, who completely takes shelter of the holy name. Such a householder should chant the holy name of Krishna in the morning, at midday, and in the evening. Then he will be able to cross beyond nations. Pure devotees in the renounced order, however, who fully surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna, should chant the holy name of the Lord with great love and faith, always thinking of Krishna's lotus feet. They should have no occupation other than chanting the holy name of the Lord. In the Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami says, "It is the Srimad Bhagavatam's opinion that the process of deity worship is not actually necessary, just as the specific prescriptions of the Pancharatra and other scriptures do not have to be followed. The Bhagavatam enjoins that even without practicing deity worship, one can achieve the complete success of human life by any of the other devotional processes, such as simply offering oneself at the Lord's feet for his protection. A vairagi, a person in the renounced order, should not depend on others. If he does so, he will be unsuccessful and he will be neglected by Krishna. If a renunciant is eager for his tongue to taste different foods, his spiritual life will be lost, and he will be subservient to the tastes of his tongue. The duty of a person in the renounced order is to chant the Hare Krishna mantra always. He should satisfy his belly with whatever vegetables, leaves, fruits, and roots are available. One who is subservient to the tongue, and who thus goes here and there, devoted to the genitals and the belly, cannot attain Krishna. The next day, Raghunatha Das inquired at the lotus feet of Sri Damodar about his duty. "I do not know why I have given up household life," he said. "What is my duty? Kindly give me instructions." Raghunatha Das never even spoke a word before the Lord. Instead, he informed the Lord of his desires through Sri Damodar Goswami and Govinda. The next day, Sri Damodar Goswami submitted to Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. "Raghunatha Das has this to say at your lotus feet." By the way, he was sitting there. "I do not know my duty or the goal of my life. Therefore, please personally give me instructions from your transcendental mouth." So even though he was there, he had Sri Damodar speak it to the Lord. This is so special. Smiling, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu told Raghunatha Das, that means he was there, I told Raghunatha Das, "I have already appointed Sri Damodar Goswami as your instructor. You may learn from him what your duty is and how to discharge it. I do not know as much as he." And we're thinking we know more than another person. "Nevertheless, if you want to take instructions from me with faith and love, you may ascertain your duties from the following words. Do not talk like people in general, or hear what they say. You should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. Do not expect honor, but offer all respect to others. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, and within your mind render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan." Purport. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasha that when a man and a woman are married, they beget children and are thus entangled in family life. Talk concerning such family life is called Gramya Katha. A person in the renounced order never indulges in either hearing or talking about such subjects. He should not eat palatable dishes, since that is unfit for a person in the renounced order. He should show all respect to others, but should not expect respect for himself. In this way, one should chant the holy name of the Lord and think of how to serve Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. I have briefly given you my instructions. Now you will get all details about them from Swarup Damodar. One who thinks himself lower than grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give respect to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. Having heard this, Raghunatha Das offered prayers at the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord, out of his great mercy, embraced him. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu again entrusted him to Swarup Damodar. Thus Raghunatha Das rendered very confidential service with Swarup Damodar Goswami. Antaranga Seva, purport. Antaranga Seva refers to service performed in one's spiritual body. Swarup Damodar Goswami was formerly Lalita Devi. Raghunatha Das Goswami, who was among his assistants, now also began to serve Radha and Krishna within his mind. It's very important because sometimes in Vrindavan, and especially in Radha Kund, they go there, they take Babaji Diksha, and immediately they start to act like differently. They change their external behavior. But here it's stated clearly that Raghunatha should do this within his mind, not externally. At this time, all the devotees from Bengal arrived, and as previously, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu met them with great feeling. As he had previously done, he cleansed the Gundicha temple and held a picnic feast in the garden with the devotees. The Lord again danced with the devotees during the Rath Yatra festival. Seeing this, Raghunatha Das was struck with wonder. When Raghunatha Das met all the devotees, Advaita Acharya showed him great mercy. He also met Shivananda Sen, who informed him, "Your father sent 10 men to take you away. He wrote me a letter asking me to send you back, but when those 10 men received no information about you, they returned home from Jankara." When all the devotees from Bengal returned home after staying at Jagannath Puri for 4 months, Raghunatha Das's father heard about their arrival and therefore sent a man to Shivananda Sen. The man inquired from Shivananda Sen, "Did you see anyone in the renounced order at the residence of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu?" They all were. "That person is Raghunatha Das, the son of Govardhan Majumadara. Did you see him in Nilachala?" Shivananda Sen replied, "Yes, sir. Raghunatha Das is with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and is a very famous man. Who does not know him?" Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has placed him under the charge of Swarup Damodar. Raghunatha Das has become just like the life of all the Lord's devotees. He chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra all day and night. He never gives up the shelter of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, even for a moment. He is in the supreme order of renounced life. Indeed, he does not care about eating or dressing. Somehow or other, he eats and maintains his life. After 10 dandas, 4 hours of the night have passed, and Raghunatha Das has seen the performance of Pushpanjali. He stands at the Singadwara gate to beg some alms to eat. If he eats if someone gives him something to eat. Sometimes he fasts, and sometimes he chews fried grains. After hearing this, the messenger returned to Govardhan Majumadara and informed him all about Raghunatha Das. Hearing the description of Raghunatha Das's behavior in the renounced order, his mother and father were very unhappy. Therefore, they decided to send Raghunath some men with goods for his comfort. Raghunatha Das's father immediately sent 400 coins, 2 servants, and 1 brahmana to Shivananda Sen. Shivananda Sen informed him, "You cannot go to Jagannath Puri directly. When I go there, you may accompany me. Now go home. When all of us go, I shall take all of you with me." Describing this incident, the great poet Sri Kavi Karnapur has written extensively about the glorious activities of Raghunatha Das in his Sri Caitanya-caritamrta Nataka. Raghunatha Das is a disciple of Yadunandana Acharya, who is very gentle and is extremely dear to Vasudeva Datta, a resident of Kanchanapalli, Because of Raghunatha Dasa's transcendental qualities, he is always more dear than life for all of us devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Since he has been favored by the abundant mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he is always pleasing, vividly providing a superior example for the renounced order. This very dear follower of Swarup Damodar Goswami is the ocean of renunciation. Who among the residents of Nilachala Jagannath Puri does not know him very well? This verse is from Kavi Kanarpur's Sri Caitanya-caritamrta Nataka. Because he is very pleasing to all the devotees, Raghunatha Das Goswami easily became like the fertile earth of good fortune, in which it was suitable for the seed of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be sown. At the same time that the seed was sown, it grew into a matchless tree of love of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and produced fruit. That's like getting initiated and immediately becoming full of ecstatic symptoms of love of God. It's inconceivable. This is the next verse from Sri Caitanya-caritamrta Nataka. Translation. In these verses, the great poet Kavi Kanarpur gives the same information that Shivananda Sen conveyed to the messenger from Raghunatha Dasa's father. The next year, when Shivananda Sen was going to Jagannath Puri as usual, the servants and the Brahmana, who was a cook, went with him. The servants and Brahmana brought 400 coins to Jagannath Puri, and there they met Raghunath Das. Raghunath Das did not accept the money and men sent by his father. Therefore the Brahmana and one of the servants stayed there with the money. At that time, Raghunath Das began inviting Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to his house with great attention for 2 days every month. The cost for these 2 occasions was 640 kautis. Therefore, he would take that much from the servant and the Brahmana. Raghunath Das continued to invite Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in this way for 2 years. But at the end of the 2nd year, he stopped. When Raghunath Das neglected to invite Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu for 2 consecutive months, the Lord, the son of Shachi, questioned Swarup Damodar. Notice he didn't go him directly, he went to Swarup Damodar. The Lord asked, why has Raghunath Das stopped inviting me? Swarup Damodar replied, he must have reconsidered something in his mind. I invite Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu by accepting goods from materialistic people. I know that the Lord's mind is not satisfied by this. My consciousness is impure because I accept all these goods from people who are interested only in pounds, shillings, and pence. Therefore, by this kind of invitation, I get only some material reputation. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that people who are under the bodily conception of life are called materialists. If we accept the offerings of such people, place them before the Lord and invite Vaishnavas to partake of the prasadam, that attempt will gain us only a material reputation, not the actual benefit of service to a pure Vaishnava. One should therefore try to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead by fully surrendering at His lotus feet. If one engages for the service of the Lord whatever money he has honestly earned, that is spiritual service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual master, and the Vaishnavas. At my request, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepts the invitations because he knows that a foolish person like me would be unhappy if he did not accept them. What humility. At my request, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepts the invitations because he knows that a foolish person like me would be unhappy if he did not accept them. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that people who are advanced in learning but attached to material enjoyment, who are puffed up by material possessions, by birth in an elevated aristocratic family, or by education, may offer show bottle service to the deity and also offer prasadam to Vaishnavas. Because of their ignorance, however, they cannot understand that since their minds are materially polluted, neither the Supreme Personality of God and Lord Krishna nor the Vaishnavas accept their offerings. If one accepts money from such materialistic persons to offer food to the deity and Vaishnavas, a pure Vaishnava does not accept it. This causes unhappiness for the materialists because they are fully absorbed in the bodily conception of life. Therefore, they sometimes turn against the Vaishnavas. We have that history here and in Dallas, different times. Considering all these points, Sri Damodar concluded, he has stopped inviting you. Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and spoke as follows. When one eats food offered by a materialistic man, one's mind becomes contaminated. And when the mind is contaminated, one is unable to think of Krishna properly. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur suggests that people who are materialistically inclined and sahajas, or so-called Vaishnavas, who take everything very casually, are both Vishayis or materialists. Eating food offered by them causes contamination, and as a result of such contamination, even a serious devotee becomes like a materialistic man. There are 6 kinds of association: giving charity, accepting food, offering food, talking confidentially, and inquiring confidentially. One should very carefully avoid associating with both the sahajas, who are sometimes known as Vaishnavas, and the non-Vaishnavas or Avaishnavas. Their association changes the transcendental devotional service of Lord Krishna into sense gratification. And when sense gratification enters the mind of a devotee, he is contaminated. The materialistic person who aspires after sense gratification cannot properly think of Krishna. So there's an instruction by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita where he says, Yato yato nishchalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato nayamyaitat atmanyeva vishamnyat. So this means that to be a devotee, one should, when sense gratification enters the mind, he should yato yato nishchalati manas chanchalam. He should reject it, and he should bring the mind back under the shelter of Krishna's instructions and remembrance of Krishna and the holy name. This is the simple formula for becoming purified by the inevitable material desires that come into anyone's mind who's in the material world. Apuryamana machala pratishtam samudram apa prabhashanti yadvat tatvat kamam yam prabhashanti sarve sashantim apnoti nakamakami. This is in the end of the 2nd chapter of the Gita. I think it's text 70. And there Krishna tells Arjuna that if you can tolerate the incessant flow of desires that enter into the mind, like rivers that are entering into an ocean, and the ocean generally stays steady, full, then one can be a devotee and not a person who chases after those material desires and tries to fulfill them. So you may have material desires. In the material world, anyone who has a material body, until he becomes completely liberated, like Raghunatha Dasa, and begins serving Krishna within his mind in his original body in the spiritual world. But anyone in the material world who is conditioned soul will have desires come into the mind from this birth or even from previous births. But if we don't go running after them, and yato nishchalati, if we draw the mind back and bring it back into remembrance of Krishna and the holy name, then we become pure devotees. In translation, when one accepts an invitation from a person contaminated by the material mode of passion, the person who offers the food and the person who accepts it are both mentally contaminated. Purport. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that there are three varieties of invitations: those in the mode of goodness, those in the mode of passion, and those in the mode of ignorance. An invitation accepted from a pure devotee is in the mode of goodness. An invitation accepted from a person who is pious but materially attached is in the mode of passion. And an invitation accepted from a person who is materially very sinful is in the mode of ignorance. Because of Raghunatha Dasa's eagerness, I accepted his invitation for many days. It is very good that Raghunatha Das, knowing this, has now automatically given up this practice. After some days, Raghunatha Das gave up standing near the Singadwara gate and instead began eating by begging alms from a booth for free distribution of food. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard this news from Govinda, he inquired from Swarup Damodar, why does Raghunatha Das no longer stand at the Singadwara gate to beg alms? Swarup Damodar replied, Raghunatha Das felt unhappy standing at the Singadwara. Therefore, he is now going at midday to beg alms from the charity booth. Hearing this news, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, he has done very well by no longer standing at the Singadwara gate. Such begging of alms resembles the behavior of a prostitute. Here is a person coming near. He will give me something. This person gave me something last night. Now another person is coming near. He may give me something. The person who just passed did not give me anything, but another person will come, and he will give me something. Thus a person in the renounced order gives up his neutrality and depends on the charity of this person or that. Thinking in this way, he adopts the occupation of a prostitute. If one goes to the booth where free food is distributed and fills his belly with whatever he obtains, there's no chance of further unwanted talk, and one can very peacefully chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. After saying this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu again bestowed his mercy upon Raghunatha Das by giving him a stone from Govardhan Hill and a garland of small conch shells. This, by the way, is a very important point. See, this Bengali is Gunja, Gunjamala. Now we know that Gunjamala are the small red and white, they're seeds, pods. They're like little, no, they're like berries. They're actually berries. And somehow or other, either one of the Sanskrit, persons or Prabhupada himself translated like this many times. So there's a Sanskrit term that says if a acharya, or especially a devotee on this level, does that many times, then even if you see that it's the right thing, then you can't change it. And there's a Sanskrit word for it. I'm sorry, I don't remember the Sanskrit word. I can write Vrjavida and I'll let you know later. But there's a Sanskrit word for it that says certain things you don't touch. So the editors were very, very well aware of these things later on. So they didn't change this. So it's conch shells instead of gunja berries.
We offer to Giriraj, right?
Huh?
The same bird we offer to Giriraj.
Yes. Yes. After saying this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu again bestowed his mercy upon Raghunatha Das by giving him a stone from Govardhan Hill and a garland of small conch shells. Previously, when Chankarananda Saraswati had returned from Vrindavan, he had brought the stone from Govardhan Hill and also the garland of conch shells. He presented Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu with these two items, the garland of conch shells and the stone from Govardhan Hill. Upon receiving these two uncommon items, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was extremely happy. While chanting, he would put the garland around his neck. The Lord would put the stone to his heart, or sometimes to his eyes. Sometimes he would smell it with his nose, and sometimes place it on his head. The stone from Govardhan was always moist with tears from his eyes. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would say, "This stone is directly the body of Lord Krishna." For 3 years he kept the stone in garland. Then, greatly satisfied by the behavior of Raghunatha Das, the Lord delivered both of them to him. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Raghunatha Das, "This stone is the transcendental form of Lord Krishna. Worship the stone with great eagerness." Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya that in the opinion of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Govardhan Shila, the stone from Govardhan Hill, was directly the form of Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. The Lord used the stone for 3 years, and then in the heart of Raghunatha Das, the Lord awakened devotional service to the stone. The Lord then gave the stone to Raghunatha Das, accepting him as one of his most confidential servants. However, some envious people conclude that because Raghunatha Das had not taken birth in the family of a Brahmana, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not give him the right to worship the deity directly, but instead gave him a stone from Govardhan. This kind of thought is naraki, or hellish. Naraki, or hellish. As stated in the Padma Purana, Arche Vishnau, Shiladir Gurushu Naramatir Vaishnave Jati Buddhihi Yasyadva Naraki Saha. If one thinks that the worshipable Shalagram Shila is a mere stone, that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being, or that a pure Vaishnava preaching the bhakti cult all over the world, is a member of a particular caste or material division of society, he is considered a naraki, a candidate for hellish life. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu instructed that the Govardhan Shila, the stone from Govardhan, is non-different from the body of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he indirectly advised such foolish persons that one should not be envious of a Vaishnava who belongs to a different caste or sect. One should accept the Vaishnava as transcendental. In this way one can be saved. Otherwise, one is surely awaiting a hellish life. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "Worship this stone in the mode of goodness, like a perfect Brahmana. For by such worship, you will surely attain ecstatic love for Krishna without delay. For such worship, one needs a jug of water and a few flowers from a tulsi tree. This is worship in complete goodness when performed in complete purity. With faith and love, you should offer 8 soft tulsi flowers, each with 2 tulsi leaves, one on each side of each flower. After thus advising him how to worship, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu personally offered Raghunatha Das the Govardhan Shila with his transcendental hand. As advised by the Lord, Raghunatha Das worshipped the Shila in great transcendental jubilation. So notice that he didn't give that through Swarup Damodar's hand. He gave it to him through his own hand. And that means he became a personal, very intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya. Swarup Damodar gave Raghunatha Das 2 cloths, each about 6 inches long, a wooden platform, and a jug in which to keep water. Thus Raghunatha Das began worshipping the stone from Govardhan, and as he worshipped, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, directly in the stone. Thinking of how he had received the Govardhan Shila directly from the hands of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Raghunatha Das was always overflooded with ecstatic love. The amount of transcendental bliss that Raghunatha Das enjoyed simply by offering water and tulsi is impossible to achieve even if one worships the deity with 16 kinds of paraphernalia. After Raghunatha Das had thus worshipped the Govardhan Shila for some time, Swarup Damodar one day spoke to him as follows. Offer the Govardhan stone 8 kaudis worth of the first-class sweetmeats known as kaja and sandesh. If you offer them with faith and love, they will be just like nectar. Raghunatha Das then began offering the costly sweetmeats known as kaja, which Govinda, following the order of Sri Damodar, would supply. When Raghunatha Das received from Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu the stone and the garland of conch shells, he could understand the Lord's intention. Thus he thought as follows: by offering me the Govardhan Shila, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has offered me a place near Govardhan Hill. And by offering me the garland of conch shells, he has offered me shelter at the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. Raghunatha Das's transcendental bliss was boundless. Forgetting everything external, he served the Lord of the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu with his body and mind. Who could list the unlimited transcendental attributes of Raghunatha Das? His strict regulative principles were exactly like lines on a stone. Purport. The words Pashanera Rekha are very significant. Raghunatha Das Goswami followed the regulative principles so strictly and rigidly that they were compared to the lines on a stone. As such lines cannot be erased at any time, so the regulative principles observed by Sri Raghunatha Das Goswami could not be changed under any circumstances. Raghunatha Das spent more than 22 hours out of every 24 chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. He ate and slept for less than an hour and a half, and on some days that was also impossible. Topics concerning his renunciation are wonderful. Throughout his life, he never allowed his tongue sense gratification. He never touched anything to wear except a small torn cloth and a patchwork wrapper. Thus he very rigidly executed the order of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. The principle of very rigidly carrying out the order of the spiritual master must be observed. The spiritual master gives different orders to different people. For example, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami to preach. And he ordered Raghunatha Das Goswami to strictly follow the rules and regulations of the renounced order. All 6 Goswamis strictly followed the instructions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the principle for progress in devotional service. After receiving the order of the spirit from the spiritual master, one must strictly try to execute the order. That is the way of success. Whatever he ate was only to keep his body and soul together. And when he ate, he would reproach himself thus: if one's heart has been cleansed by perfect knowledge, and one has understood Krishna, the Supreme Brahman, then he gains everything. Why should a person act like a debauchee by trying to maintain his material body very carefully? Purport. This verse was spoken by Narada to Yudhishthira Maharaj regarding a householder's liberation from material bondage. On the spiritual platform, one does not unnecessarily care for the body. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has said, Tehi smriti nahi yara, sangsara bandhana kahantara. One who is spiritually situated does not think that he is the body. Therefore he can transcendently execute severe penances in the renounced order of life. The best example of such renunciation is Raghunatha Das Goswami. Lord Jagannath Prasadam is sold by shopkeepers, and that which is not sold decomposes after 2 or 3 days. All the decomposed food is thrown before the cows from Tailanga at the Singadwar gate, because of its rotten odor, even the cows cannot eat it. At night, Raghunatha Das would collect that decomposed rice, bring it home, and wash it with ample water. Then he ate the hard inner portion of the rice with salt. One day Sri Damodar saw the activities of Raghunatha Das. Thus he smiled and asked for a small portion of that food and ate it. Sri Damodar said, "You eat such nectar every day, but you never offer it to us. What is your character?" When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard news of this from the mouth of Govinda, he went there the next day and spoke as follows. What nice things you are eating. Why don't you give anything to me? Saying this, he forcibly took a morsel and began to eat. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was taking another morsel of food, Swarup Damodar caught him by the hand and said, "It is not fit for you." Thus he forcibly took the food away. So this is a very important instruction, that we can't and shouldn't try to imitate Raghunatha Das Goswami's level of renunciation. If we do that, we become contaminated. And I'll tell you what happens, because I've seen it personally. They look at Prabhupada and saw how he conducted himself differently than Raghunatha Das and criticize it, because he's in sannyas order, and therefore he shouldn't eat like he does. He shouldn't dress like he does. He shouldn't do what he does. This is gross misunderstanding. Lord Chaitanya had intimate associates and devotees that were extremely dear to him, who were very opulent. One of them was Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Pundarik Vidyanidhi. In the spiritual world, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was the father of Srimati Radharani. So Lord Chaitanya's Krishna and Radharani together, so Pundarik Vidyanidhi was very doubly dear to him. So one day he heard that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was coming by train not by train, by caravan or something to Navadvip, or passing by the area. And he told Gadadhar Pandit. He told Gadadhar Pandit to go and hear Krishna Katha from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So Gadadhar Pandit went there with Mukunda, I think. I think it was Mukunda, anyway, I'm not sure, I have to look that up. But when he got there, he saw that he was living in this very opulent tent like a sultan. And he had, his hair was oiled, and he had all kinds of scents, and he was eating the most opulent fruit and prasadam. He was lying on a, he looked like a gross sense gratifier, And he paid his obeisances, and he kind of looked around and watched him. He said, I just came to see you. And then he left. And he went back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said, so did you hear Krishna Katha from Pundarik Vidyanidhi? He said, no, I just paid my obeisances and offered respects and left. Come back. He said, you immediately go back there and you hear, Hari Katha from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So he went there and he chanted some verses from Bhagavatam, 10th canto. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi immediately went into an ecstatic state. And he started going mad, and he's like breaking everything in the room and destroying everything. And he went into ecstatic symptoms, all kinds of ecstatic symptoms. And then Gadadhar Pandit realized, this is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted me to. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, told him, you chant this verse to him. So that was a verse, and it was something about the Rasa Leela or something, whatever it was. And so then he fell at his feet, and he begged him for Diksha. The only way he could get free from the offenses was to fall at his feet and take complete shelter of him. So this is an example, just one example. So he gave specific instructions to specific intimate devotees to exhibit some aspect of devotional service to full perfection. So if a person wanted to take that path, he would know exactly what to do. So, and therefore they were given different names or different titles Namacharya, Haridas Thakur, Sanatana Goswami was the Siddhanta Acharya, Siddhanta Siddha, and Rupa Goswami was the Prayojana Siddha, and Raghunatha Das was the Vairagya Siddha. So in that way we should, it isn't one size fits all. I know, I've seen devotees when the sannyasis first started to take sannyas from Prabhupada, they would try to imitate these things, and some of them just kind of went, they just went crazy and went away, because you can't imitate these things. Our Acharya is Srila Prabhupada, and he embodies the instructions and the authority of all the Acharyas before us, and therefore we should see his example, and follow it. Not necessarily when he was an 82-year-old Paramahansa sannyasi, but at the different stages he was in his life. I wrote an offering about that. Maybe I'll bring it out someday. Anyway, excuse me for taking so much time out of the reading. Text 324. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, of course, every day I eat varieties of prasadam, but I've never tasted such nice prasadam as that which Raghunatha is eating. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed many pastimes in Jagannath Puri. Seeing the severe penances performed by Raghunatha Das in the renounced order, the Lord was greatly satisfied. In his poem known as Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha, Raghunatha Das has described his personal deliverance. Although I am a fallen fool, the lowest of men, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered me from the blazing forest fire of great material opulence by his mercy. He handed me over in great pleasure to Swarup Damodar, his personal associate. The Lord also gave me a garland of small conch shells that he wore on his chest and a stone from Govardhan Hill. Although they were very dear to him, that same Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakens within my heart and makes me mad after him. Purport. This verse is from Sri Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha, written by Raghunatha Das Goswami. Thus I have described the meeting of Raghunatha Das with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyone who hears about this incident attains the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You may not understand how or why or even when, but the deed is done. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunatha, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Antya-lila, 6th chapter, describing Lord Chaitanya's meeting with Raghunatha Das Goswami. So this is why I selected particularly this section of Caitanya-caritamrta, or out of all of Prabhupada's books, to read, every night while I can for the rest of my visit, because devotees are not hearing enough, and they're not hearing enough in the right mood. And if they do, they will get so much encouragement. They will get so much. If we hear with faith, complete faith, that statement, we will become so happy, even though we may not understand it completely. You should know that, these books are absolute. They're not, this is not just some euphemism to, trick you into doing something. This is the supreme mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's eternal associates. And Srila Prabhupada's purports make the subject so crystal clear, so simple, easy for all of us. Anyone can understand it. This was his unlimited mercy upon us. So, Hare Krishna. It's now exactly 8:15. Finished in the right time for a change. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada. Any questions or reflections or comments? Yes, Sarva.
Like Raghunatha was very careful when accepting things from materialistic people, even though they were Vaishnavas, sort of like Vaishnavas. Is it proper to consider them when Srila Prabhupada was such a great Vaishnava that on some occasions he accepted donations or money that wasn't perfectly earned but used in Krishna service? Not that he wanted to make a practice of it, but that Prabhupada was such a great Vaishnava that in some occasions he took some Lakshmi, it wasn't gained the best way, but usage for Krishna service, and somehow that was...
He had a different duty. He had the duty to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And the only people that were out there were those kinds of people. So he took those things and he purified them, by having them be engaged in the service of Lord Chaitanya by spreading the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. This is the time and circumstance. It's the same logic and reasoning as we don't want to, act like Raghunatha Das just because he did this at that time in that place. Practically everyone around him was following the Vaishnava principles in West Bengal at that time externally. So it was easy to make a mistake. And Prabhupada mentioned this many times. He asked his preachers not to go to wealthy men and just take prasadam there. He would engage them, he'd take their money and engage in Krishna service, but he told them not to eat there. And then he told them, but if they become life members, and give up meat eating, then you can go and eat at their house. So he had, prescriptions or, rules and regulations. It's just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made the point that when a preacher shouldn't preach to those who are faithless, because it's an offense against the holy name of the Lord. So, but devotees who are preachers and go, sometimes they give, lectures in large groups, and obviously some of those persons are going to be like that. So there, it's different. You try not to give intimate, knowledge, Krishna's pastimes, but you give the pure philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and you're protected by Lord Chaitanya, and all of the previous acharyas. You take that risk. To deliver the fallen souls on the order of Lord Chaitanya. So no, we shouldn't ever think like that about Prabhupada, even that he's taking something from impure people, and therefore could that be, because people who don't understand the philosophy as deeply as you do, Sarva, may misinterpret it, and they do sometimes. When he went back to India, he got so much criticism for bringing Westerners and giving them sannyas and Brahminical initiation and so many things. So, there are people, I've been living in Govardhan for, 94, 96, 23 years now. And I've seen everything. And sometimes there are accepted authorities who criticize because people take Govardhan Shila out of Govardhan. They say this is not allowed. But we just heard that Lord Chaitanya gave a Shila to Raghunatha Das in Jagannath Puri. So how did it, it had to be taken out of, and Lord Chaitanya accepted it. So if you make a statement anywhere, even in the Association of Devotees, questioning whether or not Vaishnavas can do that, when in fact what Lord Chaitanya did it, or a devotee who was, obviously, world acharya like Prabhupada, then it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. The safe thing is to accept the standards that Prabhupada set and his example, and with the right understanding, as a manifestation of the instructions of all the previous acharyas, including Lord Chaitanya. Just like he was giving Caitanya-caritamrta out to the people in public. It's inconceivable. Yes. Shyamasundar.
That you read those 3 verses that the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly gave the instructions to Raghunatha Das Goswami. It was Gramya Katha,
Yes.
don't listen, don't say,
Yes.
don't wear the opulent clothes, don't eat the opulent
Yes.
food. And the second was that renunciation is very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes.
Prominent quality that we should keep up, and he become very pleased.
Yes.
And third one was that we should always absorb without respecting any respect from other, we should offer the respect to other, constantly chant the holy name.
Yes.
And through the mind we should render some service to Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan.
Yes.
So did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu give any other instructions, or only these instructions?
That's it.
Only
That's it.
these 3?
And then Srup Damodar filled in the details.
Right. But at least those are the 3 main.
Yeah, and those were the core. Just like Prabhupada asked us to follow 4 regulative principles. But those regulative principles are the root cause of all other sinful activities. And when one follows those 4 regs strictly, automatically his mind becomes purified, and then he knows instinctively what is right, what is wrong. And then his chanting becomes, pure.
So,
and it's not such an easy thing to do. These things are all adapted to like we chant 16 rounds. Bhaktisiddhanta would not go and eat in a person's house who was not a lakpati, and we don't mean rupees. We mean, 64 rounds. That's a lakh rupees. I mean of names. So Prabhupada, and then when we heard about Raghunatha, Haridas Thakur, then when Prabhupada made that very famous purport about how Haridas Thakur rigidly chanted the prescribed number of rounds every day, and Prabhupada said you can get the same result by taking the order of the spiritual master and chanting 16 rounds every day and following the principles. You get the same result. But because he was the Namacharya, in that time and circumstance, he showed how to rigidly, and similarly we heard just now Raghunatha Das Goswami, his principles were rigid, like the lines in stone. And when you see devotees, even in our movement, who were like that, rigid, like Jayadvaita Swami is a good example of this. He's rigidly performing his sannyas vows,
The other question I had was that unless and until you become pure to understand your real positions, and according to then your spiritual identity, you render the service to Radha and Krishna. But in our stage, how can we begin to render by mind?
There's 9 processes of devotional service, and this was mentioned in the purport, that if you render any one of those services with a pure heart and do it perfectly, and this takes practice over time, but you have to start somewhere.
Right.
So the principles that Prabhupada gave us, our morning spiritual program, our especially the preaching, hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna, praying, serving, doing deity worship nicely, and then that's the 5 processes of regulations that are the most powerful association with devotees, reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Reading of the Bhagavatam is more important than is being given, credit for many in nowadays. That's why I'm taking that order and I'm trying to emphasize it too much wherever I go. Maybe it's too extreme, but anyway, whatever it is. So, and staying in the holy dham, chanting the holy names and relishing the holy names in kirtan, and which association with devotees, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, living dham, chanting the holy name of deity worship, those 5. So we do those, and the potency of each one of those is so great that even if one completes just a small portion, gets a drop of that, then that momentum takes him in the right direction. So if we see someone who's very attached to doing one of them, but isn't attached to doing the other, we should be very careful, because that person may be an elevated soul. And I mean, Srila Prabhupada said something very extreme. I said it to you the other day. I'll repeat it. And that is that every person that sets foot into that temple, every person, even if they're just passing in, sticking their head in the door, what's this? What's going on in here? And we should not take them to be ordinary persons. And he said that in the West. What to speak of in India. And therefore we offer respect. There was one point about respecting the Vaishnavas. So when Lord Chaitanya, when the devotees from Navadvip were going back to Bengal from Jagannath Puri, there was devotees from, I forget who asked the question. Maybe it was Shivananda Singh. I don't remember who it was, but it was somebody from Navadvip. And he gave him the instruction to go back and serve, because he asked them what to do. Chant the holy name and serve the Vaishnava. So then he asked the question, what is a Vaishnava? So the first time they asked the question, he said, anyone who has chanted Hare Krishna once. And then the next year he asked him the same question. And he said, anyone who has taken initiation and is worshipping the Lord is a Vaishnava. And then the third time he asked him the same question, and he said, anyone upon whom being seen, you feel like chanting Hare Krishna. You feel like surrendering just by seeing him. So this is his grading the devotees in different levels, but all of them deserve to be served. That's the perfection. And gradually by doing that, then you get mercy and you get intelligence and strength and everything. And particularly Prabhupada was very keen in us reading Prabhupada's books, in his books. He used to say, when I have time, I read my own books. And the devotees who were around him a lot when he was in India, especially when he first went back, they would sometimes hear him say, he'd read his books a lot in India. But before it started to get really big, he had time on his hands and he would read his own books. And sometimes persons would come in and say, Prabhupada, you're reading your own book? And Prabhupada would say, this is not my book. I could not write this book. This book is written by Krishna. And he would read the same book again and again. In the beginning, he didn't have that many books. 1970, 71. So if we just get it somehow or other, Prabhupada said, somehow or other get attached to Krishna. He was so, Prabhupada was liberal and strict at the same time. And we can see Lord Chaitanya, sometimes he was so liberal and sometimes he was very strict. Junior Haridas, we read this before you started coming. Very strict. So not just anybody can be both liberal and strict at the same time. It's a transcendental, quality. character, of character. So if we just hear these things and appreciate, there's one very nice verse in the Bhagavatam that says, because we should, even if you can't do those things, if you just appreciate the person who's doing those things, you get the same results. Just like Prabhupada said, these great, wealthy men, they hear patram pushpam palam toyam, so they keep a little box, and then they keep a deity, they open the box, throw a banana, close it, and that's their devotional service. In the meantime, they're opulent, living so opulent with their family and spending, crores of rupees on their daughters' weddings and so many things. And poor Krishna's just getting a banana, They'll throw a leaf in, So, according to our position, according to our capacity, we give what we can to Krishna. According to the quality of our attachment, we give. That's what we have to see. We have to see the taste that a Vaishnava has for chanting, for serving, for worship of deities. And not everyone can do everything. Maharaj Ambati, she did everything. But not everyone will do that. But if anybody really, like Akrura's prayers, that was the example. If someone prays like Akrura, he becomes intimate to Lord Krishna. Hears like Maharaj Parikshit, he becomes perfect. If he talks and explains, like that's Kirtan, explaining Shukadeva Goswami. So it's not just one thing that somebody takes out of context and makes it the whole thing and then, minimizes the rest of the devotees or whatever. It's deep. We have to see internally. Can't see inside the person's mind what they're thinking, but we can see by the taste. It's obvious who has taste and who doesn't have taste. Okay, I just ran out of gas. I ran out of energy that I have to give today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Raghunatha Das Goswami ki jai. The austerities of Sri Raghunatha Das Goswami ki jai. Swarup Damodar Goswami ki jai. Sri Caitanya-Mahaprabhu ki jai. Lord Jagannath ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Thank you.